Let me call upon Dr. Ahmed Tahiri Jouti, Chief Operating Officer at Maali Consulting Group in Morocco, to share the experiences of Morocco.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين. Ladies and gentlemen, Salamullah alaykum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. What is fascinating is that through the presentations, I discovered that Morocco has so many common points with each of these countries. For example, in Turkey, they call the Islamic banks participation banks, and so we do. In Oman, they have a really strict and tough regulation in terms of Islamic windows, and so we do. In Astana, they have a financial center, and in Morocco, we are trying to develop Casa Finance city. So this is very fascinating. Well, the aim of my presentation is not to promote the Islamic finance model in Morocco and not to criticize it. The aim is to share with you what we have learned from that experience. Okay. Mouse, yes. Yes, perfect. Both, yeah, okay. Well, yes, the first draft of the banking law that includes a chapter dedicated to Islamic banking was introduced in 2012. And it was voted in Parliament in 2014, means 2 years later. Yes, the first Islamic banks and windows were licensed in 2017, and some of them has just started their operations in 2017. Yes, 5 years later. So for external observers will tell me, well, the implementation process of Islamic banking took too much time in Morocco. Is there anything to learn from that experience? Let me tell you, yes. In the Moroccan experience, we have so many specificities that make this experience worth analyzing and worth discussing, and to learn what it has to be learned from that experience. In my opinion, there are the main characteristic of the Moroccan experience is the involvement of the financial authorities and the government. There is a willingness to implement a really competitive Islamic finance industry in Morocco. And believe me, it's not a favor. It's about neutrality, it's about equity. And one way to do it is to create a comprehensive Sharia-compliant financial system. To do so, we issued suitable legal and regulatory frameworks. Then, to ensure harmony in those frameworks, Morocco adopted a centralized Sharia governance system. In parallel of all these frameworks, the regulators emphasized on the diversity of players. So, according to me, I think that the 4 pillars of the Moroccan experience are A, a comprehensive Sharia-compliant financial system, B, suitable legal and regulatory frameworks, C, centralized Sharia governance system, D, the multiplicity of players. I'll try to be concise and precise because we don't have much time. I'll try to go into details for each of these pillars. So the first pillar, the comprehensive Sharia compliant financial system. Today in Morocco we have 3 spheres. We have the first sphere is the banking sphere, we have the takaful sphere, and we have the capital market sphere. There are some projects that are already finished, others that are ongoing, and others that still that hasn't been started yet. This approach is guided by 2 main principles. The first principle is that a comprehensive Sharia-compliant financial system is necessary to ensure economic efficiency and Sharia credibility. And the second principle in Morocco is that Sharia compliance is not limited to Islamic financial institutions, but it is extended to all the institutions that are dealing with Islamic financial institutions, like the clearing system, like the Corporation for Credit Guarantee. All these institutions are concerned by Sharia compliance, and the approach extended the Sharia compliance to all these systems. There's a question that someone can ask. Now Islamic Bank started. Why the other components hasn't started yet, since this is your approach? Well, in Morocco, as you know, there isn't only one regulator that is supervising the whole financial system. For each sphere, we do have a regulator. For example, for the banking, we have the central bank. For insurance sector, we have a regulator, and for capital markets, we have a regulator. And there is a lack, there is coordination, but it is not solid enough, and we don't have a roadmap for the whole sector. I mean, each regulator has its own roadmap, but there isn't a whole roadmap for the whole sector. But anyway, we have priorities identified. We have some of the most important priorities. Priority one is the first sovereign sukuk issuance. This is one of the main priorities, and it is an ongoing project. Priority two is the takaful operators. Now, banks started offering murabaha without any insurance coverage. Only we are waiting for takaful. Priority three is the guarantee fund, which is offered in order to guarantee murabaha financing for certain segments of population. So, what are the learnings from this pillar? For any country that wants to implement a Sharia compliant system, you need to have a comprehensive vision, a roadmap, and then this Sharia compliant system is not limited only to Islamic financial institutions, but is extended to all the institutions that are dealing with those Islamic financial institutions. Second point is that coordination is very important, and for the sector and for investors, it is important to draft a roadmap for the whole sector with deadlines, so that investors would know when to invest and where to invest. Second pillar is about legal and regulatory frameworks. Now, in Morocco, we have three layers. We have the first layer is the legal layer, which is all the laws that are drafted and approved by the government and then voted by the parliament. The second layer is the regulatory layer, which is all the circulars, decisions of the regulators. Then there are the technical notes. Here, in the legal framework, we have two options. Option one, you can issue a dedicated law for Islamic financial institutions. Or option two, you can include articles and chapters dedicated to Islamic banking in the existing laws. Well, Morocco adopted the option two, which means that we have a banking law, we included a chapter that is dedicated to Islamic banking. We have insurance law, we included some articles about takaful, and same for sukuk. Now we have many laws were already issued, voted by the parliament, like the law number 103/12 about banking, law 59/13 about insurance, including takaful operators, sukuk issuances in law number 5/14, and there is a Tahir about the constitution of a centralized Sharia board for the whole financial sector, and there is the tax law, and now there will be amendments that will be included in this law, so that to ensure the total and entire neutrality between conventional financing and Islamic financing in Morocco. In terms of regulatory framework, there are two types of circulars and documents. First type is regulatory frameworks that are dedicated to Islamic banks. Type 2 is regulatory texts that govern in both Islamic and conventional financial institutions. The general approach in Morocco is as follows. The regulator issued the first draft of the regulation. Then it is discussed with all the stakeholders, which is very, very good, because everybody is participating in drafting this regulation. Then it moves to the Higher Council of Ulemas, which is Majlis al-Ilm al-A'la, which is the central Sharia board in Morocco. He approves the regulation, then it is transmitted to the General Secretary of the Government to be published in the official journal of the Kingdom. Well, there is an advantage, which is a participative approach. Everybody is participating, but it takes sometimes more time than it is expected because of the multiplicity of stakeholders. Well, the many regulations, many circulars were already published. We can move quickly to the challenge. Here there is a challenge that is discussed. Today, the problem or the challenge is not to fall into over-regulation, which means that as a bank, do I have to submit every little aspect to the Central Sharia Board to have a fatwa, or can I have some initiatives? And here, this approach, this is very challenging and very problematic, because if I can work on a product development, on innovation, and I submit it to the Central Sharia Board, if he issues the fatwas for everybody, so why would I invest for others? It would limit the product development efforts. But this is one of the issues I think in Morocco they took into consideration this. There will be special fatwas for banks and general fatwas when it comes to issues concerning the whole sector. Let's move to the central, 3 minutes, okay. The Central Sharia governance, we have one Sharia board. This is a commission belonging to the Higher Council of Ulemas. Why Morocco chose a Central Sharia board? It's not only a choice, but it is, I would say, a constitution matter. In the constitution in Morocco, the only entity that is authorized to issue fatwas in Morocco is the Higher Council of Ulemas. So this is why we choose the Central Sharia board in Morocco, and standardization in finance is a real issue that was discussed during the session 4. So Majlis al-Ilm al-A'la is supervising the whole sector, the whole institutions, all the fatwas are issued by this entity. Let's move, but there are some, in terms of Sharia governance, there are some issues that are still pending. For example, like innovations, product development efforts, like I would say, would it be external Sharia audit in Morocco? Would it be a central Sharia audit? Well, all those issues are today discussed in the central bank, and they're supposed to give us an overview of this system. Let's move quickly to the diversity of players. There are 3 levels of diversity. The first level is about the investors. We have most of the players are GVs, in joint ventures, which means we have local players bringing their knowledge of the local market, the local regulation in GVs with foreign Islamic banks. The number of players today, we have 8 players, 5 full-fledged Islamic banks and 3 Islamic windows. And it will ensure an interesting growth rate. And we have authorized both windows and full-fledged institutions. This is just move. And now the question, and this is very challenging, would it be, is the Islamic finance market in Morocco big enough for 8 players? This is the question. Let me tell you that there were many surveys conducted by banks themselves that show that there is a big appetite for this product. But today, if we have a comprehensive Sharia compliance system which ensures Sharia credibility and economic efficiency, for sure will widen this market. Now the effort of popularization comes to the banks. I mean banks who has to invest more in training and making the public understand the principles and concepts of Islamic banks. So these are the main challenges. I think I have 1 minute. Okay. The main challenges is more coordination, a roadmap with deadlines to make it clearer to investors. We have to tackle all the Sharia governance issues in Morocco. Okay. We have to accelerate the implementation process of takaful and sukuk, and banks need today to invest on efforts and initiatives of popularization of the concepts in order to widen the market and to bring more and to attract more customers. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmed. Very, very insightful. I take your message, do not overregulate. I think we should pass this along to many of the jurisdictions where we're developing Islamic finance. We have to wrap this up by 3 p.m. sharp, so we have about 10 minutes.